Hey everyone, Dark here. Welcome back to the channel. We are playing some Ark Mobile, and in today's video I'm going to show you guys why dye is one of the most underrated things in the game. Not only is it an anti-glitching mechanism for PvE servers, but it also is an anti-scouting defense for PvP servers, for large tribes, small tribes, and everything in between. It is something you need to start doing. So anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in, and don't forget to like the video if you do learn something from this and if you enjoy the content, and subscribe as well. And I stream weekly, Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Twitch. Follow me there as well if you like streams. Anyways, to start off, we need to understand rendering. That is first thing you gotta understand, so I'm going to start off by building a little 1x2 simple hidden base in the trees and show you guys why rendering is something you really need to be thinking about and really need to understand. And now make sure, guys, that you do watch to the very end of this video. I want to make sure you guys really fully understand the rendering aspect and how dye affects it in both a positive way in your favor as well as a negative way. If you use it incorrectly, it can hurt you. But ideally, as soon as you're done watching this video, as soon as you've watched the whole thing, you'll understand how I can help you. Like I said, in both PvE and PvX settings for anti-glitching, anti-scouting, and PvP servers. So I'm going to go ahead and get this 1x2 built up just like a regular 1x2 might be built if it was hidden in the trees. Bed, smithy, mortal pestle, fabricator on the second floor. Something super simple, super easy, hidden in the trees. It would be a little bit difficult to see if you were just flying, over the trees, but you'll see how the rendering can actually make it super easy to find. And that's what I'm going to show you in order to kind of lead into why dye can be so helpful. And alright guys, so the 1x2 has now been built, so I'm just flying up to the top here so that we can kind of get basically where somebody would be if they were actually scouting. So somebody that's scouting, looking for bases, looking for stuff to hit, stuff to raid, they're going to be flying up high. They don't want to be seen, if they do get seen, they want to have the high ground, if you're a Star Wars fan, but they want to be able to see everything. The other reason is because the trees don't render in when you're this high up. But what you'll notice is if you get to the right height, see, look at that, you can actually see the 1x2 that I built render in before the trees render in. As you get closer, the trees start to render in. It's harder to see the base now, and then the trees actually play the right role of hiding the base. But when you're way up there, the structures actually render in first, and it gets worse when you're on a busy server. This is single player, so the lag is easy going. But on a multiplayer server, you get lots of lag, and the rendering is even exaggerated way beyond that. So that's how rendering can play a role. Now let's start to talk about dye. So I came over here to one of the unofficial servers, the MGL one, the one that I've actually done for my short breeding series that I did a little bit ago. But I came over to this server because I already had a pre-existing base, and it's on a multiplayer PvE unofficial server, so there's lots of people here. Just like I was telling you, a lot of potential lag, right? And I went ahead and used my admin powers because, I'm partners with MGL. But I went ahead and flew way up in the sky, and I'm looking down at the base that I've built, and look at this. You can literally see the inside of my base. Okay, this is where the PvP and the scouting means something. If someone's scouting your base in PvP, they can literally see all the tames you have inside your base. They can see the layout of your base. They can see what's where's the breeding area, where's the crafting area, that kind of stuff. You don't want people to be able to see that when you're trying to defend your base, because if they know an area is a breeding area, they know that if they're looking for eggs, they should look there. But if they know that the crafting area has several fridges, they know they should blow into that area instead, and it can play a role. And then in terms of the PvE and PvX side of things with the glitching into bases, this is how people actually glitch into your base. They fly around on a fast tame like a Pteranodon. They fly around, they get a lot of lag on their system, so the rendering is all messed up, on the server for them, for their specific character. Because, like, have you ever flown across a really busy server before, and by the time you cross the island, all of a sudden things just are slower, there's more lag, you see a base that you see bits and pieces of, but it's just not rendering in properly? Essentially what they do is they recreate that scenario, they create that lack of rendering so that they can then fly a fast tame into your base before the walls actually render in, and that's how they glitch into your base. Okay, so what we want to do in order to be anti-scouting on PvP servers and be anti-glitching on PvX and PvE servers is we want to make sure that our walls and our ceilings render in before everything else, because that's what they're supposed to do. You don't want the stuff interior of the base to render in first. You want everything outside of the base to render in first so that nobody can see inside, right? So let's go ahead and show you how to do that. So the first thing we need is a spray painter. Now you can use a paintbrush as well, but a spray painter is going to be a lot more efficient and a lot easier to use, so I definitely suggest that. You can get any color dye to use, and you can get them all from that dye studio in the crafting station section of the premium items. Most people though, most players will have a few different dyes laying around, so you likely do have some because you get them like from random gifts and stuff, and most of the time you get them, you're like, I don't really need this, why am I getting this as a gift? Well, here's something you can use it for. So again, you can use any color dye, it doesn't matter, and then you want to make a few spray painters. That's the easy way to do this. Essentially what we're going to do is we're going to paint everything that we want to have render in. We want to spray paint, which means all the outside walls, the foundations, and the ceilings. All that stuff, the doors, all of it. We want to make sure we paint all of that. Any color. I typically paint my stuff black, or like just a simple color, white, black. I think there's a gray or something, I don't remember the name of it, but any of those simple colors is usually what I paint for the different colors. For right now though, I'm just going to use orange because that's what I have. So I'm going to go ahead and put 2 spray painters in my hotbar, put them both orange because I just know I'm going to need at least 2 of these because I do have a very large base. But essentially I'm just going to go all the way around the base, spray paint all the walls, all the ceilings, the foundations, all orange. I'm not going to worry about the center foundations, only the stuff around the outer edges, because essentially if the entire surrounding of the base is covered in this dye, all of those specific structures are going to render in first, and anybody that tries to spy on my base is going to see those structures before anything else. Anything. Also, it'll protect us from glitching, because if somebody's trying to glitch in your base, if your base is dyed, your base is a lot more likely to not mess up and have a rendering issue, and it's going to actually render in regardless of how much lag they're experiencing, thereby making it a lot harder for somebody to glitch in your base. And if you're really worried about it, if it's happened to you before, you can also double layer your base by putting an interior section to keep your eggs and stuff safe when you're breeding, because that's when people try to glitch in. You can make an interior section, dye it all a certain color, and then go dye the outer edges of your base another color, and just pretty much double layer it with structures that will render in before everything else because of the dye. So I'm going to go ahead and get the whole base dyed, though I won't make you guys have to deal with the watching this whole thing, because it'll probably take me a good 10-15 minutes, but I will catch you guys here in a bit as soon as I am done. Alright guys, so the base is all painted now, it is all orange, and I am high enough now to where nothing is currently rendering in. So now remember, last time when we went down here, you could slowly start to see everything inside. So if you look, we are right on the edge of the rendering. Watch what happens as you render in. Are we going to see the inside, the fabricator, the RGs, the different door frames and the gate frames? No. Everything that is dyed is rendering in first, and we can't see anything inside of this base. Look at this. So now look behind. I did not dye the back side of the base because I want to show you guys the difference. See how all this is covered and this is not? This is the back side of the base. That's like the back deck that you can see. This is the part that I dyed, and we can't see anything. You can't even see the RG wings and rendering in that are literally sticking outside of the walls. You can't even see those because we're too far out of rendering distance, and the dyed walls are covering them up. If the walls weren't dyed, we'd be able to see everything right now. But because of the dye, everything's covered. No one's going to be able to glitch in this base. No one on a PvP server is going to be able to know what we have hiding inside of this and where it's hidden inside. We are totally covered. We're protected by the dye. That is how dye can help us, okay? One of the most underrated things in the game. It is unbelievable how many times people don't... Look, you can actually see the RGs now. Finally, you can see the wings sticking out. But it's unbelievable how many people don't actually dye their bases. And at first you think, well, I don't really care if I have it a color. And honestly, I don't either. But the dye does help from people scouting. Nobody can see inside your base anymore. Nobody can try to glitch in. It's a huge deal. You need to start doing this, guys. Now, the last thing I want to tell you, this is super important. If you are trying to stay hidden, just like that 1x2 that I made at the beginning for this video, if you are trying to stay hidden, do not dye anything. Because remember, anything that has died will render in first. Period. Die equals rendering in first. So if you're going to try to stay hidden, don't dye your stuff. Now, don't forget though, just because you don't dye your stuff doesn't mean that your structures won't render in before most of the trees and most of the rocks on the island. So remember, anything that you do build, most likely people are going to be able to spot through the trees due to just the natural way that rendering works. So take that into mind when you're trying to find somewhere to build.